The internet was conceived as a way to share information and new ideas. Personally, I use it to share videos of my cats. The original intent of social media began innocently, I'm sure. Pretty quickly, people found ways to lie, cheat, and manipulate. Everybody tends to create an avatar of their best life, leaving out the boring parts. Well, most people do. Making it seem like your life is perfect is very different from catfishing on a dating site or financial fraud. It took no time for the darker side of social media to become evident. Prepare to pass through the looking glass where one man without a job and a lot of mysterious money can leverage his phone and free Wi-Fi at Starbucks to tear apart the fabric of people's lives. And he can do it all without consequence.
My plan for living in St. Joseph was I was going to open my steak company, and we were going to ship steaks out of Missouri. And so when I bought my building, I had my recording studio, and I kind of always had the dream of opening a free recording studio. And that later, many people in the community that were musicians turned on me and attacked me is moderately bizarre, because I had really hoped to be the person who helped them, have some bigger opportunities. And that was really my plan: sell steaks, do, free studio time for artists, and then all hell broke loose. And I'm not going to go away. I am fucking tired of this. I'm tired of living
in the last year and a half for creating hundreds of social media accounts and targeting U.S. citizens. The FBI got feeding information to the murderers.
St. Joe is a good city. The people are nice.
St. Joseph, Missouri was basically a fur outpost located in northwest Missouri.
The Pony Express started there. Jesse James was killed there. And the rapper Eminem was born there.
We're about 40 minutes north of Kansas City. We're right on the Missouri River.
I believe that Matthew Berdyck is a con artist. And I think he tried to run a grift in St. Joe. And we didn't fall for it, thankfully.
I think Matthew just kind of picked us out of a hat. I think he decided he wanted to rile some feathers up, and I think he thought we were going to roll over and let him do whatever he wanted, and that's clearly not the case, and I think he doesn't know how to let that go.
What the hell were you doing in St. Joseph, Missouri, to begin with? And it's such a stupid reason. I was living in Des Moines, and I learned that my condo company was building another complex on top of a toxic waste site, and I realized that my rent was going to pay for that.
Well, actually, he had gotten evicted from his apartment in Des Moines. Not a condo, an apartment.
So then I was put in this bizarre position to where I needed to find a place that matched my furniture. I got in my car, and I was kind of bored, and I took a drive south and ended up in St. Joseph. Seemed reasonable, wasn't very nice. There wasn't anything nice about the city. So I would be able to live there. My meat processor would be down the road. It made it logistically easier to be able to run the steak company. I'm not picky. I had a lot of money at the time. I mean, I had, I think, $45,000 in my bank account, something like that. I mean, it wasn't super a lot of money, but, it was enough to kind of do whatever I wanted. So I basically lived in St. Joseph because they just had a condo that matched my furniture. I was having a really super hard time finding a place that did that.
I think that story about his furniture is complete bullshit. I mean, who finds an apartment to match their furniture? That's ridiculous.
And so I knew in St. Joseph, Missouri, I could just go unnoticed. I could live there, be anonymous, not, have any attention, and that was that.
Berdyck likes to play the part of the hero. It all pretty much started with the IHOP incident. He wanted to save the damsel in distress. He didn't want to do it, so he went and asked somebody else to go do it for him.
This battle in St. Joseph, Missouri started when I walked up to an IHOP and there was a man who was assaulting a woman in the parking lot.
I was the manager at that night, and my server came like running into the office, and she was like, this guy came in saying that the couple that just left is in an argument outside and the man is hitting her. So just on the off chance that there was an altercation, I went back and called the cops.
So I walked back in the IHOP, and I walked up to the whoever was standing there, was either the waitress or the manager, one of the two. I can't tell, I can't even really remember what either one of these people looked like at this point.
The woman, the manager, Rachel Hayner, was not present, and this is very clear in the video. She was not outside. She was not in a position where she could have seen what happened. This man was choking the fuck out of this woman. The car was shaking. It was really violent. And I realized that I needed help.
And since then, the altercation has changed to where the man was like choking her. And I'm like, that's not at all what you told us, and that's not what I told the police, because I was going off of what you told me.
I asked 3 men who were sitting at a table to come out and help me protect the woman.
And the guys were like, the manager already called the cops, it's not our business.
And they immediately went off on me. We ain't helping no one, blah, 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 blah. I looked down and the guy's wearing a Trump grabber by the pussy t-shirt.
He called them a bunch of pussies because they wouldn't go help him beat some guy up.
The girl behind the counter called the police. She confirmed that the assault was happening.
And so nobody but Matt saw the couple get into the physical altercation outside. And she was like, are you going to be eating with us? And he said no.
And she asked me to leave the restaurant.
So he went outside, but the whole time he was just saying cuss words, calling the guys names, and of course they responded in kind.
As these guys were screaming at me across the restaurant. So I went outside. About 20 minutes later, the 3 shoeless hillbillies came out of the restaurant and they started threatening me, so I turned on my camera.
I'm a reputable person in this country, by the way. I'm not just some nobody that's standing here right now that nobody's gonna listen to, man.
Don't come inside, ask us for help.
I asked you to help that woman that was getting beat up right there and you refused. So I'm filing charges against you when the cops get here. Just letting you know, I'm a national working filmmaker and a journalist. I'm a well-respected person.
You're a bitch.
I'm a bitch. I'm driving a $50,000 car over there. It must be somebody.
What the fuck do you drive? That's cool.
Yeah. Maybe I'm who I say I am. You're physically threatening me right now.
I did. Just a little bit. I never threatened you. Because he came inside asking for help and he called us pussy. Keep your composure.
So I'm a national working filmmaker and journalist. I make movies.
So
I'm not talking to you.
I'm done that, like...
I'm just famous, is all.
It doesn't matter.
Well, you know, just because you don't know who I am doesn't mean I'm not famous.
For somebody who claims to be just nationally widely known, I had no idea who he was.
Well, I see the police coming around the corner. They don't stop. They drive right past the restaurant. So I actually have to chase them down in my BMW to get them to come back to the restaurant. The woman at the IHOP lied to the police, said that I wasn't assaulted.
So whenever the cops did finally come, I told them, I don't think that there was any blows given. I don't know for sure.
And the police wouldn't investigate. I spent an hour arguing with them, trying to get them to investigate, and they wouldn't do anything.
And so my server just kind of popped her head out the door and was like, Matt got like real into her face and with his little phone camera and was screaming at her, saying that she was harassing him and that she's letting these guys harass him.
So I had to raise a big stink. Well, eventually the police, after I contacted city council, opened up an investigation.
I called my manager after it was all said and done. We have an email from corporate. She was like, so did you know that he was gay? How would I know? It's not like he was waving like a rainbow flag or anything.
This is just speculation on my part, but I really do think that he fakes being gay just so he can have an excuse to con people.
She was like, I want you to read what corporate sent me, the email, and that we as staff had kicked him out because he was gay, and then that we lied to the police. And me and the server were reading this going, that's not at all how any of this happened. Like Monday morning, I got a call from Lieutenant Dan Swiger saying he wanted me to come in and make an official statement.
Bring each one of those waitresses and bring those people from that restaurant in there and let them testify. Let's bring them in separately and let's let them tell their story. And let's watch each one of them not be able to fill in the holes in their carefully manufactured reality they're in.
So I went in, me and my server went in at different times and talked to Lieutenant Dan Swiger. He has my full recorded statement, and I told him the same thing that I told the cops.
All that's going to happen, and I'm confident, is that my story will be proven to be true. I'm going to win this lawsuit, and I'm going to single-handedly take down the corruption in St. Joseph, Missouri.
I think his intent was to, if not get compensated from IHOP, the corporate store, was to get me and my server fired.
I didn't start this war. I got dragged into this ball of bullshit, and I'll tell you right now, I'm the motherfucker that's going to end it by fucking getting us into a court and making sure that everything that's been done is properly reviewed by judicial authorities.
One night when I was closing our bar down, usually I check my city email on the weekends, but for whatever reason, I'd received an email from someone named Matthew Berdyck, someone I'd never heard before. And in this email that he sent to myself, every other member of the council, the mayor, the chief of police, and several other individuals, he said he was a victim of a hate crime because he's a member of the LGBTQ community, and that immediately piqued my interest. What struck me as odd is usually when someone has a complaint, they get right to the point of what the complaint is. What he led with was basically a summary of his resume.
The first thing you might be asking is, who is Matthew Berdyck? Matthew Berdyck is an experimental gonzo filmmaker, journalist, activist, and philanthropist. He's made solicited major cable network TV pilots, Cartoon Network's Adult Swim, music videos for Grammy nominees, experimental documentaries, and short films. His writing pieces on the subject of toxic waste have been read by millions of people in the United States. He is the founder of SuperfundResearch.org, an environmental activism and EPA watchdog group. In 2018, he founded Daily Independent Journal, an investigative journalism outlet dedicated to speaking truth to power and exposing the sordid, slimy underbelly of reality. That's me reading my own bio, by the way.
So my first reaction after reading his email was like, okay, this guy is definitely trying to sell us something, but, he's making a complaint, and I take every complaint, one as serious as the other. So he goes on to describe this alleged incident at the IHOP. He'd fired off several more emails, and just, they were threatening. It's like, you're going to, the city's going to act on this, or I'm going to make a documentary exposing the corruption. And I'm like, okay, this is getting a little crazy. We're probably dealing with a nutcase. That Monday, we had a city council meeting, and I pulled our chief of police aside, and I just asked him, I was like, so I'm sure this has come across your desk. What can you tell me about it? But it was going to be investigated by our police department. I talked to the city attorney, and the best thing to do is just not offer a response. Let the internal investigation of the police department happen.
It became so intense, I realized the police weren't going to charge these people, that the prosecutor wouldn't get involved.
He posted a picture online of the letter he got from the police department. They did an investigation. The prosecutor declined to file charges because there was not enough evidence that a crime was committed.
The person who was conducting the internal investigation, I know well. I trust him. The investigation was very thorough. He was emailing us nonstop. In fact, between the end of July of 2018 and mid-October of 2018, there were over 740 pages of emails that Mr. Berdyck had sent to the city of St. Joseph. These two police officers didn't do what he wanted them to do, so he wanted to get them fired. Berdyck's lucky he didn't get arrested that night for trying to file a false police report. Police officers' job is not to do what you want them to do. Their job is to help enforce the law. And Berdyck claimed that he had this video of the entire incident. Turns out he does.
No, I mean in the building, like you're just being an ass. There's a child in there.
I'm not.
You're being an ass.
What is wrong with you?
You have a camera.
You are threatening me.
You're threatening me with a camera, buddy.
I'm notifying you on camera that you are harassing me. Once I notify you,
In a public place?
legally,
In a public
you are
place?
now harassing
Get in
me.
your $50,000 car and get your ass out of here.
I'm the guy that exposed the Flint water crisis, by the way.
Good. Stop bragging about yourself.
Just so you know.
Stop bragging about yourself. Shut the fuck up.
I wasn't aware just talking
Shut
about my
up.
resume was bragging.
Shut the fuck
You must
up.
be a failure.
Shut up, you little queer.
Did you call me a queer?
Yeah, just to see
A
how
queer.
you react.
A
Just
queer.
To see how you react.
You called me a queer.
Just to see how you react.
You know that's a hate crime right now.
See, in the Midwest.
You know you're committing a hate crime right now.
In the Midwest, if I say a fag.
I'm from the Midwest.
Are you a fag? Yeah, exactly. So
Are you a
you're getting
fag?
pissed off.
I am.
So what?
So you're committing a hate crime right
I'm
now.
not committing any hate crime. I'm just asking.
You got a problem with gay people, man?
I want you to get the fuck out of here because you
Well,
came inside.
you don't have a right to tell me to
asking for our
leave.
help,
You're not.
And then called us a fucking pussy when you come inside asking for our help.
I know. I
So
wanted
get
you
the
to
fuck
help that
out of
woman.
here.
And I watched the video, and it was him taunting and saying insane things to these three guys. Those officers cut him a break. And instead of being grateful, he decides to go after their livelihood.
When I stood up to expose corruption in the police and the local government and the prosecutor's office in St. Joseph, I had been branded as a fraud. So then, about a day later, a big article went out to the whole city exposing the police for corruption. It wasn't also just these two cops. The crime rates in the city had risen 56% in the last so many years. There were lots of citizens complaining about the police.
Bad Egg Investigations was the first blog post run by Matthew Berdyck. It was a direct response to him not getting his way. It's important to point out that while Matthew Berdyck denies that Bad Egg Investigations was his blog post, it needs to be noted that this story was from his point of view. The photos were from Berdyck's own cell phone camera, which he or someone paid to promote on Facebook, so it attracted a lot of local attention. It's almost verbatim what was in the emails that he sent to the city. If you publicize something negative about the police department or about a police officer, you will have people jump on that bandwagon.
Beginning with Bad Egg Investigations, the focus shifted to Matthew Berdyck becoming the victim of a hate crime. No one knows what became of the woman from IHOP, or if she had ever really been assaulted.
The local media refused to write about it. They called me on the phone. They killed the story when they found out I was telling the truth.
Yeah, so within a week of Berdyck contacting city officials, he was irate that we weren't doing anything to fire these police officers and to remedy his situation. When he went to the news press locally about it, that the reporters wouldn't write a story about it.
I am a former technical director at News Press Now in St. Joseph, Missouri, and that is a newspaper, the St. Joseph News Press, and we have 5 television stations, and my job was to run the director board during the evening newscasts.
It's kind of a widespread problem with the police, and so I stood up to expose the police. The local media buried the story.
In late July of 2018, Matt emailed our reporters with the story of what happened at the IHOP. They looked into it, they found that it wasn't credible, and they decided not to run a story. And in retaliation, he started launching social media attacks on our newsroom.
They knew that if they buried it, it was going to cause me a lot of problems, so they buried it.
In August of 2018, I got an email, and it was from HR, and it was essentially a warning about Matthew Berdyck. And it said that if he attempted to contact any of us, to report that contact right away.
This resulted in our St. Joseph News Press going through active shooter training.
Before Berdyck's harassment, it was never necessary for us to have an active shooter drill.
So I got angry and I started my own newspaper. I had a business base where my state company was, and I opened a newspaper.
His headquarters for the Daily Independent Journal was just this brick building right outside of city limits next to a gun range where he also had his recording studio.
So basically, he had a broom closet he rented outside of city limits where he kept his camera equipment and his writing desk.
And that newspaper generated 61,000 readers in 1 week. 10 times the amount of traffic that the local media was generating.
All he did was write a blog and tie it to a Facebook page called Daily Independent Journal.
He first started the Daily Independent Journal as the Daily Independent News, and then for some reason it changed the name to the Daily Independent Journal. The Facebook pages were exactly the same, he just changed the names.
Daily Independent Journal, the idea for it was a media outlet that operates nationally, all over the country, but also operates as a local media outlet. And so we never actually got that far in the development of the project because of Austin Gocher.
I'm a former Marine. I was in public affairs in the Marine Corps, so I was basically a photojournalist for 4 years. I'm a disabled veteran. The way I met Matthew Berdyck was there was an ad on Facebook looking for an editor for a newspaper. And so I responded to it, I sent my resume, and I got a phone call like within an hour. He said he'd looked over my resume, it looked really good. We talked for a couple hours that night, and he told me he'd get back to me on what he was gonna do. And the next day he called and offered me the position and explained to me what he thought he wanted me to do, which was basically to be the head of this newspaper and to be autonomous from everything he does.
I was going to gift the newspaper to the community. This was a charitable thing I was doing. I was just founding the newspaper, and I was going to give it to the community as a gift, and that way it would be a community-owned newspaper and I wouldn't have any involvement with it.
It sounded like a good deal to me because I didn't have to deal with any of his personal life. It was just going to be me doing journalism stuff. Every time we were supposed to meet, something came up, and I never ever met him. And so I was working on stuff because I wanted to do a couple pieces that were a little more investigative than some of the other stuff I've done. And then one day he calls me and he goes, I want the website live tomorrow. And I'm like, I don't have the stuff to make the website live tomorrow. And so we went back and forth, and during this time period, he was calling me for 8 to 12 hours a day. I mean, we were on the phone constantly every day. And so I didn't get a whole lot accomplished because I was on the phone dealing with Matt. He told me he wanted a story about a shooting that happened here in town. Well, I tried to get a hold of the police department so I could do my own interviews about that, and I couldn't get a hold of anybody. So he told me he wanted me to pull quotes from the news press, and I was like, dude, I can't do that. He was like, well, it's not stealing. And I was like, it's clearly stealing. So I told him I wasn't gonna work on that story. His spelling's atrocious, so every time he sent me a story, it would take me 30 to 45 minutes to go through and fix all the spelling errors.
So my whole foundation for what I eventually became was reading books about investigative journalists. I studied writing, grammar. I studied filmmaking. I prepared myself for this coming battle.
And he submitted a story that didn't have any spelling errors. And I was like, that's suspicious. So I Googled the contents of the story, and I found almost word for word the exact same story on another website. So I called him out on it. And he's like, well, it's not plagiarism. It's like, you understand what the definition of plagiarism is, right? And he's like, well, it's not plagiarism, it's content aggregation. And I'm like, if you're gonna use that story as a source for your stuff, you need to cite that as the source for your stuff. Finally, I told him I wasn't gonna run anything that was on another website unless it was properly cited, and if he wasn't gonna properly cite it, I would. And he told me if I was gonna do that, then I needed to find a new job. And I was like, that's fine. I'm not gonna put myself on the line like that for a position that isn't paying that much and isn't what I thought it was gonna be to begin with.
I basically gave him what he told me was his dream, And then he blew it. And there wasn't a reason that he blew it. He just decided not to show up. There wasn't any legitimate reason for him to not to show up to work.
He sent me this message on Facebook and fired me, basically. And within 30 minutes, he had contacted everybody on my reference list from my resume. And he had sent several of them multiple emails. He CC'd me on everything. They never responded to him, but they called me and were like, what's going on with this Matt guy and why is he emailing me? None of them believed anything he said. And one of my references, she was like, hey, you stepped in some shit. And that he went off on them, but if he would have just talked to them to begin with, he would have known I wasn't gonna do any of that stuff. I blocked Matt on everything, whether it was my phone, my email, my Facebook.
So after I fired Austin, I was pretty disgusted with him. I gave him a desk and an office and an entire newspaper that he could run, plus funding and staff. It's a really nice thing to do for somebody who had nothing. And Austin fucked me. He basically wrecked my entire business.
It really bothered me that he couldn't at least explain his side of the story to me instead of just flipping out on people.
Well, when it became clear that I was going to become the voice of anti-corruption in St. Joseph, enter City Councilman Brian Myers.
Where I stepped in publicly was where someone I'm good friends with got into an argument with him on Facebook, and Berdyck kept running him down.
He posted on his social media that I was a fraud and a con man. He posted that I had scammed the city.
He posts an image of my campaign logo, and he's like, is this you? I'm like, yeah, that's me. Probably I should have just stepped away there, but with what he was saying about our police department and what he was saying about people in the community that I know and respect, I'm like, okay, there are still going to be people that believe all of his bullshit.
I feel really bad for the people of St. Joseph because Brian Myers is the absolute 100% criminal. And there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And I will gladly prove that in a court of law if he was man enough to face me.
He then launched a political attack against me, telling everyone that I was anti-gay and anti-equal rights. And to that, I can only say my track record politically speaks for itself.
And I'm a born-again believer, and I have religious convictions that the Word of God condemns some of the practices of homosexuality to glorify our Lord and Savior, who says marriage is between one man and one woman. You're not born a certain way, that this is a choice they have made, and that's why I think it is condemned in the Bible.
I think anyone's born a bigot either. I think it's taught, and I think you're a glaring example of bigotry that's been taught.
Just kind of scrolling through Facebook, I had seen where a friend of mine had shared a page about Matt attacking Brian Myers. And so I was like, that's that guy. So I clicked on the link.
So I clicked on it and I was like, holy shit, it's the guy from the news press. It's the exact same guy.
I think a lot of people took it as a joke.
It looked professional enough that if you went to it the first time and you didn't know what you were looking at, you probably would have thought this was a legitimate news website.
If you go back and read his articles, he's not a journalist.
Some of the articles were just flat out ridiculous. The Care Bears thing, I mean, that's not news. And he also wrote an article about how he stole Metallica's New York Times. It's like, who cares? Who fucking cares? That's not news. That's a vanity piece. The articles are just so poorly written and contain slander. He tries to pass it off as a big professional news organization, when in reality, it's just him publishing hit pieces on people that he even has minor disagreements with. He would also use fake names for staff writers.
People turned on him pretty quickly, and that's not to say that he still doesn't have 2 or 3 people in the community that thinks what he's saying is gospel, but these people are, by and large, low information types.
The titles of the articles would just be, salacious and meant to inflame. So when you see this, you click on it. He needs that blind validation, the people that don't bother to read into his background or check the author's status or anything like that. Any comment that doesn't flat out agree with him, he just deletes it, and he bans a lot of those users too. And anyone who would legitimately question his background, either as a filmmaker or a journalist or an activist, any of those questions, gone immediately. Or he'd argue with him and call him stupid or something.
I can only surmise that Matthew Berdyck created Daily Independent Journal because he did not get the legitimate media coverage in this community that he so desperately sought after.
I had just gone on Facebook to correct the details that he had gotten wrong, because there were a few people going, wow, this is crazy, and I was like, I want you to know that's not how it happened. I had my own little very article about me.
He didn't sell ad space, so he wasn't making any money from those articles. So why publish them in the first place if it's not for some personal vendetta?
My daughter actually heard about him, heard about the Daily Independent Journal, and told me about it. I said, well, maybe you should interview this guy, Dad, because, you know, it's something else to write about in town, something new. I am a music journalist. I write for Blurt Magazine, it's national, and here in town, Tuning Fork Magazine. Yeah, I reached out to him and told him who I was. Everything went fine until I had to tell him that the editor decided not to do the piece. He just didn't want the hassle of Matt Berdyck, because I would get messages. And finally, my girlfriend just says, well, why don't you just block the guy? And I was like, I was having fun with him at first.
Yeah, you can scroll down this page and it's just filled with madness. I mean, this is a journalist in St. Joseph that orchestrated a massive cyber attack against me and then screen capped the entire thing and posted it here. Somehow making me look like I'm the aggressor, even though it was, you know, this person that posted all this.
You know, I've been made fun of my whole life. I know what bullies are like. This guy's just a bully.
The second post that he made on Daily Independent Journal was about a filmmaker in Columbus, Ohio named Peter John Ross, who had absolutely zero connection to St. Joseph until I saw the post and decided to reach out to Mr. Ross personally.
I published that Peter John Ross was spreading rumors and manipulating and lying.
I had never heard of St. Joseph, Missouri before. So it's just really weird to be accused of spreading rumors there. I'm an independent filmmaker from Columbus, Ohio. The only thing of note I've ever made was a feature film about Nazi zombies and werewolves called Horrors of War. And I created a regional PBS show called Frame Lines about filmmaking. I got 4 regional Emmy nominations for my work on Frame Lines. But as my mother so often reminds me,
a nomination is not a win.
So any level of success I've had is open to interpretation. In 2012, I had this run-in with Matthew Berdyck on the site indietalk.com. He started emailing me, it got really harassing, and eventually I filed for a Civil Stalking Protection Order in 2015. He never got served, and eventually I dropped it. This guy has come after my job, my livelihood, my reputation. Matthew Berdyck wrote an article accusing me of being obsessed with pedophilia. So Berdyck started sending this article to all the stations that were playing our show, and rather than deal with it, they canceled the series. When Brian Myers reached out to me and said the name Matthew Berdyck, my heart sank. All I could tell Brian is, I have a really bad feeling about what's about to happen in St. Joseph.
When you're looking for one of the reasons that I left St. Joseph, Missouri, it was when I realized that the Kansas City FBI office was actually approaching people in my world and asking them to watch me. And so why would they do that?
The man opening fire on reporters.
Investigators say the suspected killer held a long-standing grudge against the Capital Gazette,
who may have had a long-running feud with the paper, having sued the paper in 2012 after it reported that he pled guilty to criminal harassment.
Berdyck's harassment of the reporters came right on the heels of the Annapolis newspaper shooting in the summer of 2018.
The FBI did visit Matthew Berdyck.
In St. Joseph, Missouri, when the FBI tried to get my neighbor next to my business to commit to watching what I was up to and reporting to him. And he said, you know, these agents came here and they asked us to watch you and they asked us to report on your whereabouts and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
2 FBI agents went to the space Matthew was renting and interviewed him about his contacts with local reporters and city officials. Soon after, Matthew wrote an article claiming that his newspaper had been raided by the FBI and harassed by the agents. On September 11th, Matthew published an article claiming that one of the FBI agents was an enemy of the people and that he was against free speech.
He took a picture of an FBI agent's card and posted that to social media.
Big part of the problem is that that's the guy that would investigate the actions of the police. And blocking an investigation just because it's his buddies, you know, he says it's not, but that's bullshit, man.
So then Berdyck gets pissed at the FBI because the FBI is not properly doing an investigation on the person who, in the police department, who's also doing an investigation on the 2 police officers that Berdyck once fired.
Demure sat there on the phone with me, and he read my FBI file to me. They sent me a letter saying, no, we do not maintain a file on Matthew Berdyck. And then a month later, this fucking agent sits there and just reads my entire FBI file to me on the phone. And I'm like, oh, I thought that you guys didn't have a file on me. I realized Demure wasn't a very smart man. I realized that he could be easily manipulated. So I just acted in a way where I got him to reveal certain things about my situation that I needed to know. And he sure did that.
I mean, within a few days of the FBI visiting him, he just leaves.
Eventually, the harassment I was getting from the town was just so, I mean, I was getting hundreds and hundreds of harassing emails at the same time. It was really crazy.
Berdyck shows hypocrisy in nearly every post that he makes.
Well, eventually I started getting a lot of threats and stuff, and I realized I was in a position to where I couldn't really live there anymore because I didn't feel safe. Like, if I was already assaulted once, what was to stop someone from assaulting me again? I didn't run from St. Joe, I just went to buy a piece of land. I'm not running from anything, I'm just out here traveling and doing what I do. I think when I get in my car that when I leave to drive somewhere else, somehow you scared me away.
Matthew Berdyck may have physically left St. Joseph, but that's exactly when he starts to really ramp up his online harassment.
After he left, that's when he started to really focus on writing all these horrible things about St. Joseph. He's a keyboard warrior, but only when he's got enough distance between him and the people that he's writing about.
I have to be in the town where I'm fighting for them to be able to fight back against me. I've been creative enough to structure my life in a way to where I'm not stapled down to one location. And I have methodically created ways to survive this. And I have, because they can't fucking find me.
I'm not going to sit here and tell you that we're going to catch all bad content in our system. We don't check what people say before they say it, and frankly, I don't think society should want us to.
At this point, Matthew Berdyck declared war on the city of St. Joseph.
So he would post an article on Facebook, and it would generate, like 800 or 1,100 comments. And he would just reply to every one of these comments. And he would spend sometimes 18 to 20 hours a day doing this. And I would sit and watch these things, and you could see the date and time of when he's posting these things on Facebook. He would reply obsessively to these people, and a lot of the times it was insulting.
Facebook allowed him to create this perfect image of himself and delete anything negative towards him.
If you just question Berdyck on something, he flies off in a rage.
He wants to insult anybody and everybody who sees through his bullshit.
Dude, all this guy does every day, every waking moment, is harass people online. The messages he was sending to me and Brian, it was just boom, 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 boom. I mean, it's like he's just Superman typing all this shit just so fast.
Anyone that disagrees with him about anything, major or minor, tries to ruin their relationships with other people, tries to destroy their good name. Once they are aware that Berdyck was out there and this Daily Independent Journal page was posting nonsense and then direct messaging people privately, people started to share their stories locally.
If I wasn't out pissing people off, then I wouldn't be accomplishing anything at all.
When anyone would argue with him, he was going after all of their employers too. And one person in particular who is higher up in employment in our regional Boy Scouts office, he filed complaints against Boy Scouts of America. This guy rattled Berdyck so much that Berdyck found out that this gentleman's mother had a federal job in Leavenworth, Kansas, and called her employer and tried to get her fired.
Everybody's got to stop Matt. You know, he's powerless, he's ruining people's lives. But the really, really interesting thing is when you say, okay, well, whose life did he ruin? And everybody gets quiet. And there isn't anybody's life that was ruined.
It was not for a lack of trying. He was certainly trying very hard to ruin people's lives.
There's a guy that owns a flooring company that just ask him, is there anything I can do to help? He was reaching out to him like, this guy's got a serious mental health issue. How can I help you with this? He sent him, days and days worth of just insane, threatening messages, all because this guy reached out and tried to help him get help. He not only tried to get someone fired from a local music store, he tried to get someone else I know fired from a restaurant in town because he had a disagreement about something political on Facebook. When you get into a disagreement with someone and you don't just walk away, it is not normal to try to get them fired from their job.
The only way I can save my career is to go after theirs. That's it. I have no other way to win this battle.
Which career? I mean, like the activist career, the journalist career, the steak dealer career, the filmmaker career. I don't think any of those are legitimate. I think they all exist only in his head.
He wants to be this big guy who crushes all these little people, and he wants to make himself be so much more powerful than he really is.
If you piss him off, then all of a sudden you're the sole reason why he's a worthless loser.
Facebook acts faster and removes a greater percentage of the hate speech on our services than other major internet platforms, including YouTube and Twitter.
I reported dozens of his posts, and none of them were ever removed.
We're able to identify almost 90% of the hate speech that we remove before anyone even has to report it to us.
He's harassing people and spreading fake news. I would get a notice back saying that it did not violate community standards. And I'd be like, how does this not violate community standards? And if it doesn't violate community standards, it absolutely should.
The laws have definitely not caught up with it. And a lot of people in law enforcement will tell you, you know what, you can always block their Facebook profile, but that only protects you from one-on-one harassment. There is nothing that stops someone like Matthew Berdyck from making a public post about you as a person, whether it's true or not, and then putting an obscene amount of money behind it so that everybody sees this picture of you that Mr. Berdyck has built up in his mind and is trying to sell to the people.
I think Facebook has an obligation to moderate that content, and they are doing an absolutely terrible job at it.
We're also going to be banning posts that make false claims. We're also focused on creating a higher standard for hateful content in ads.
St. Joseph, Missouri stands up for its own. That is very, very corrosive to activism. What if I go from town to town and I meet all of these activists and I network them into a very, very big, powerful group that can turn around and fuck up the government and fuck up the EPA and fuck up causes and start fucking people up all over the place.
On Facebook, calling each other names, that's not really that big of a deal, but when you start getting into threatening bodily harm, telling people to kill themselves, that is a crime. Kids have gone to prison for telling each other to commit suicide.
I think Matthew Berdyck attacks people because when he doesn't get automatic respect or adulation, he immediately flips to, I'm gonna threaten people. Matthew Berdyck definitely gets a sense of power when he hurts people or just scares them.
This is his MO. This is what he does. This is not unique to St. Joseph. This has happened in, I think, 7 different states.
My business partner worked at Facebook. Our campaigns were paid for by Facebook. And we were constantly given compliments by Facebook about the level with which we were able to educate people. I have been able to disrupt the functioning of entire cities with my campaigns, and I did that in cities all over the country.
Matthew Berdyck had the funds to move from city to city and pay to boost Facebook posts. But who is giving him money to terrorize whole communities? Matthew Berdyck posted this image on Facebook of a deposit he got from Social Security Disability.
And Berdyck claims to be disabled, but no one is sure what the disability is. And he has claimed multiple things at different times.
Disability checks alone could not fund the lifestyle that Matthew Berdyck has. He's getting money from another source. And God knows it's not from working a 40-hour-a-week job. There is nothing that Matthew Berdyck does that he is able to monetize to make that kind of money. Somebody is giving him money.
I noticed that Berdyck had often bragged about being rich.
But, oh yeah, he's told me he was a millionaire, multimillionaire. He's the only transient millionaire that I know of.
Driving a BMW with $20,000 in cash, 6, 7, 8 fucking guitars with me, $1,000 watch, $1,000 phone.
Recording equipment. I mean, he really did own those things.
Matt would often threaten people that his business partner worked at Facebook. And I suspected he was a con artist and that he had his hands in somebody's pocketbook. And it turns out that that person was Alex Hwang, who was an employee for Facebook.
In 2011, when I pitched my show to Cartoon Network, they passed. I decided at that point I was going to take all the footage that I had from the show and I was going to turn it into a film about homelessness. And for the next 18 months, I fought to get off the street, but I filmed all of it. And eventually I had a 73-minute documentary which showed me homeless. I got it out, and then that's when Alex came along. And so he just basically said, I'm going to come pick you up. And, you know, whatever. He's like, I'm going to give you some cash. I'm going to put a deposit. I stayed at his house that night. And then the next morning I woke up and I had several $1,000s in my bank account. And right away I took that money, bought a new camera, most people would like go get a house. I'm so committed, man. I was like, fuck it, I'm going to make another film right now. I used all the money on a new camera, new laptop, plane tickets.
The only thing I know about Alex Hwang is what Matthew Berdyck said about him in his communications to the city. Alex Hwang is his business partner.
Matthew Berdyck posted on Facebook that Alex Hwang had joined the Daily Independent Journal.
Alex was making a really, really lot of money, so it wasn't really that big a deal. And I'm really glad he helped me. I mean, it really helped me travel the country and do my investigation. And I mean, I benefited from it. I got all kinds of, I was able to go to hundreds of communities because of this. I was able to go all over the United States. It was like being a rock star, really.
In July of 2019, Alex Hwang actually files a restraining order against Berdyck.
And being dependent on Alex was very uncomfortable, and it made me feel trapped, and it made me feel like I was being exploited, and it made me feel like I had no control over my own destiny.
Hold on a second. So now that Alex has a restraining order, suddenly Matt's the one being exploited and being forced to spend all of Alex's money. That is bullshit.
That Alex Hwang, for whatever reason, gives Matthew Berdyck money. 2 BMWs or a Land Rover. But the weird thing is, at least 2 of those vehicles are still registered in Alex Hwang's name.
Matt talked to his business partner, Alex, who I've never talked to, I've never met, I've never even met Matt in person. The day that I got my signing bonus, which was $500, Matt said he was gonna send it to me. And then when I got the information to pick up the check from Western Union, it was sent from Alex. That was a really suspicious thing to me because why is this guy sending me money if I've never even talked to him? When Matt fired me, he threatened to sue me for this $500, but he didn't even give me the $500. Alex did. And when I pointed that out to him, he got really pissed.
And Berdyck was so desperate to appear rich, he would post screenshots of PayPal transfers over 10 grand. He would post shots of him flaunting money.
No, I feel like he's ripping off Alex because when I told him I'd give Alex the money back, I was like, I have no problem sending Alex his $500 back. I can do that, but I'm not giving it to you. And I actually sent Alex a message on Facebook, and I never got a response from him.
All I wanted was sustainability. I wanted to create something for myself. That's, as a disabled person, I think that's probably what we all want.
And what Hwang did for Berdyck goes above and beyond what a lot of other people do for people that are down on their luck. You know, Hwang gave him hundreds of thousands of dollars. He funded not only Berdyck's lifestyle, but helped fund the cyber terrorism that Berdyck seemed, to really enjoy.
Matt sends an email to city officials and threatens that both he and his business partner who works at Facebook are experts at Russian disinformation tactics.
That my business partner was on the Russian disinformation team at Facebook, and he leaked a lot of information to me that I probably shouldn't have had. And so when I'm creating these campaigns, I know what I'm doing.
Was Alex Hwang a willing accomplice in all of this, or was he somehow coerced or manipulated by Berdyck into doing this?
There was always this suggestion that he was somehow planted in my life, and that, again, the money was this leash. And since I was all over the place, he was always the person that could just report back to whoever it was that planted him in my life. I mean, you don't think that somebody wouldn't want to know about a guy who was traveling the country speaking to activists and getting on the inside of every cause in the United States? Every time I've spoken about these odd things as crazy, I'm being gaslit. Like, I'm being made to feel that I'm crazy.
In the middle of all this band Ramey Memo comes out of nowhere, and they start just telling everybody I have AIDS, and they're just smearing my name all over town, and they're bullying me, and I'm getting all these insane messages.
Our biggest thing is we don't like seeing people getting fucked with, especially if it's people that we know. So what we tend to do is we'll fuck with them back. We do that by writing songs about whoever it is.
The Ramey Memo has been a band in St. Joseph for almost 20 years. We've been around for quite a long time. We like writing about weird situations and weird people in our town. It's something we've always done. And Berdyck was definitely a weird situation that I felt appropriate to write about.
They're guys I've always enjoyed being around. I think they're funny. I think their music's funny. I like that they don't take themselves too serious.
I decided I wanted to do a song about the whole Berdyck situation, and I decided to use the actual threats and crazy shit for the literal lyrics to the song. He claims that I faked all of those messages.
Well, those are fake, right? They're just not real. Like, I think they're like someone photoshopped them.
And you're probably going to live in prison. We don't lose these battles.
I just laughing about it. Like, it's just funny that someone would just go to that level. Like I fucking give a shit, man.
Then bring it on, you bigot, KKK pussy. I always come back with the fire of 10,000 angry suns.
Who the fuck says that? That sounds like an 80s cartoon villain.
100%. Myers would go to jail. First off, this is a national scandal waiting to happen.
On Twitter, he confronted me saying that he was a co-author of the song. But I pointed out to him that he had completely denied sending me any of those messages, and when I pointed out his hypocrisy, he deleted the fucking tweet.
You have to be so fucking horrible of a person to just sit there. You gotta be a serious fucking loser to sit there and make a fucking spend your life just feasting over a set of lyrics.
Very same quiet and well-mannered guy. The FBI doesn't have jurisdiction over an alleged threat against a reporter, and there was no threat. I imagine someone might also attack one of you physically. You bring to me. You belong to me. Now do you understand?
It's almost a tribute to the level of success that I've had, that I have some fucking band out there trying to make videos about me. If you haven't seen the video, go check it out. It's called Poison in the Balls. I was like, if you really think about it, they're just making me a fucking legend.
So within a couple of months of Berdyck leaving the city of St. Joseph, the emails just kept coming and coming and coming. You know, he's going to sue us for violating his civil rights. He's going to sue us for being violently chased from his home, and so on and so forth. But the city officials just completely ignored him. And while this kept going on and on and on, you could tell that it was building into something.
At the time, I was doing an investigative journalism research project, and I was going to nuclear facilities.
I think Berdyck was mad that people were starting to ignore him. And in 6 years of dealing with Matthew Berdyck, I'd never seen emails like these before. He was seriously escalating the situation.
Well, the first thing I did was look at a map to see where the closest nuclear facility was, to see if, if he's serious about this, how much danger is he going to present to the people in the community that I have been elected to represent. From what I understand, mostly bluster, but you have to take these kinds of threats seriously. This isn't threatening to slash somebody's tires or punch somebody in the mouth. This was a threat to completely disrupt a system of power. That could be big enough to cover, an entire region, and also a threat that, could very well harm, and I think these things need to be taken seriously.
An article appeared on a site called scumbag.com that said I was headed towards Perry Nuclear Power Plant and I was going to blow it up. That's basically what the article says.
Scumbag.com were the only ones to reply to Matt. They asked him, "Are you serious about these terrorist threats?" He replied, "I'm at Perry Nuclear right now, and you're in the blast radius." They called the police.
Calls were placed to the Perry, North Perry Village police, and this cop was half asleep. He just took the threat seriously. He pinged my cell phone to locate me. From the emails that were allegedly sent, I don't know if they're real or I don't know where they came from, but at the same time, even those emails don't make a nuclear threat towards Perry Nuclear Power Plant. There's nothing to do with Perry.
Bunch of fake emails. They even go out of their way to fake these emails.
He claims that the Perry emails are fake, and then he fucking quotes from them. How do you quote from an email you've never read?
So the email address mberdyck@gmail.com was hacked about 50 fucking times, and I abandoned it many years ago because of this. And so I have no access to the account. I don't use it. Like, I can't even log into it at this point.
mberdyck@gmail.com is the same email address he's using to contact the people he's already admitted he contacted.
He said that some of the emails were real and some of them were fake, but how does that work when all of the emails are from the same email address? It just doesn't make any goddamn sense.
And it just doesn't make any sense. And so the only reason that I can assume that Perry was injected into all this is because the people that wrote the scumbag article live in Northeast Ohio, and Perry is probably the most well-known power plant. So they just picked one, assigned it to me.
And what did he do? He sends another email from a different email address to the same recipient list from the supposedly hacked email account, and then blames me, saying that I hacked his account and sent these terrorist threats to a nuclear facility. This, of course, leads to a 2.5-hour interview with the Cleveland FBI office. The first thing they asked me is, have I ever accessed any of Matthew Berdyck's accounts? And I said, no. They said, yeah, we knew that. They'd already checked the IP addresses, device IDs, the cell phone towers. They already knew damn well I'm not the one who did this. Now, the thing they did tell me was they said they're going to investigate. And I was like, yes, finally, somebody is taking this guy seriously.
I was actually surrounded by police in the middle of the night in Pennsylvania, and I was detained because of the allegations, and this triggered an investigation in North Perry Village, and they determined that it was a hoax.
He claims that it was a hoax by Peter John Ross, but that's complete bullshit, because if he actually did that, he would have been arrested.
Months later, the FBI agents confirmed to me they finished their investigation. They presented it to the United States Attorney for the Northern District of Ohio, who declined to prosecute.
If I were to make an assumption that the U.S. Attorney didn't feel that this was a credible enough threat to be chasing after a guy who makes threats like this all the time, and do I agree with that decision? My knee-jerk reaction is no, but I also have to say I've got some prejudice in it. We all want him to get some sort of justice thrown upon him. Maybe the U.S. Attorney did make the right decision, but to say that we weren't disappointed, we'd be lying.
How someone can threaten a nuclear facility with direct acts of terrorism and not even get a slap on the wrist. It makes no sense.
How is he not arrested for this?
Well, he has been arrested. He does have a criminal record in Ohio and in, I believe, West Virginia. Aggravated menacing, harassment.
Here's my criminal record that they have posted. I was arrested in West Virginia like 10 years ago and sentenced for misdemeanor time for violating a restraining order. I never actually hid that.
There's probably a barrage of other charges that we just don't know about, but because he skips out of town when the heat gets on, so if you can't locate him, you're not able to get him into a court of law.
You come here, drug paraphernalia, dismissed charge, aggravated menacing, dismissed charge, telephone harassment, dismissed charge. So they're listing dismissed charges, and there's stories behind each one of these charges.
I think Berdyck was mad that he didn't get attention that he wanted. So he then threatened a nuclear facility with a terrorist act and got away with it. I guarantee you he feels emboldened by that.
If they would do the right thing, if they would just arrest the guy that assaulted me, and if the media would just write articles about me so that I don't end up a victim again, confirm my story, if everybody would just do the right thing, that's what I'm expecting, right? If everybody would just do the right thing right now, all of this would end, and I would go back to just normal, quiet guy, minding my own business.
Matthew Berdyck continued to fight with people in St. Joseph for weeks after he broke his lease. The Daily Independent Journal continued to post false news stories and privately harass people in St. Joseph for months after he moved away. When somebody starts harassing another person online, how are you supposed to know that they're mentally ill? All anyone knows is that they're being attacked. There's an assumption that this person is somewhat normal, so by attacking back, they're not assuming, oh, this is a mentally ill person that I'm harassing.
I don't know how crazy he is, or if he's not crazy at all, and he's just a con artist.
He told me that everything he does is a sort of Hunter S. Thompson or Andy Kaufman style bit. So he's coherent enough to make up a story like that when he thinks there's going to be consequences.
When you're talking about like the typical internet troll, the goal of an internet troll is to elicit a response. I don't think internet troll is the appropriate label necessarily for Matthew Berdyck. He seems to have a completely different emotional need than most internet trolls. Berdyck seems to have a craving to be loved, and if he doesn't get it, he then goes off on everybody and he wants to be a victim.
He seems to have two personas to me. He will have the hero, and then he'll have like the victim persona.
There's Matthew Berdyck, and then there's Matt. And those are two, in my mind, two entirely different personalities. So Matthew Berdyck can be this gonzo madman character that's, 80,000 people are talking about on social media for exposing corruption in the police or something else. And then Matt is over here sitting in a restaurant dining, on some steak and mac and cheese or something.
I have a law enforcement background. I have a bachelor's degree in criminal justice. I'm a former police officer. Matt finds a way to twist everything around so he's the victim. He's the one getting picked on, where in all reality, he's the aggressor. He's the one picking on everybody else.
I don't feel like I should be held responsible. I'm the one that had to go to 30 doctors to figure out what the hell is wrong with me, and nobody's figured out what's wrong with me to this day. I am legally disabled. I have bipolar disorder. I'm told that I can't function in reality.
I worked in the psychiatric rehab center for, several years, and it does follow a lot of the same things that our mentally ill patients did. And from what I can tell of Matt, I think he does like having all of this attention, whether it be good or bad.
Getting views and likes on his social media, any kind of attention, is all about validation.
I'm not particularly egotistical person. I want fucking credit, and it's not because I want to be famous or I want to profit. It's because I'm tired of fucking people not knowing who I am and what I do. It would simply help me in my life if I had a fucking news article written about me. I feel like if a journalist came into my life and saw like the real Matthew, the real guy, Matt, I think they would be very uninterested.
The reason that journalists don't write about him is because he simply isn't credible.
I can't tell if he knows he's lying or not. I can't tell which one of those he actually believes. He might believe both things at the same time. It's entirely possible that he could be that mentally ill, that he believes everything he's saying it as he says it. I have no way of knowing. I mean, I'm by no means a mental health expert.
There's just no consistency here. And he has a proven track record. If he can spin the victim thing to the right person, then he's going to be able to get something out of it.
And so what I'm really guilty of is being a really powerful writer, someone who writes things that moves people and even moves people to hate me.
When someone lies as much as he does, it's really difficult to show any level of empathy or sympathy for what is even likely a mental illness. Because I think if you show compassion, he's likely to take advantage of it.
I think Matt knows right from wrong, and I think it's skewed in his head. I think he feels like he's doing the right thing.
If he does know right from wrong, then he certainly doesn't give a shit when he does wrong. He seems to take pride in it. He seems to enjoy hurting people.
That's the Matthew Berdyck character. That's that other guy.
So, despite the fact that he may or may not have a mental instability, it doesn't excuse what he's doing. I feel like he knows exactly what he's doing, and he's doing it because, in some perverse way, he's getting enjoyment out of it.
There's nothing exciting about me until I go out and it's time to be Matthew Berdyck. And then I'm 1,000 miles an hour. I'm that rock star guy. I'm that guy where the chef is coming out to meet me at the table. I'm the guy, it's an honor to meet you.
I think Matthew Berdyck uses social media to create this grandiose image of himself just as much for him as he does the internet.
He will send me a threat saying he's going to bash my head in with a baseball bat. And then when I take a screenshot of it and post it publicly for other people to see it, his response is, oh, that, Councilman Myers faked that. If all of these people that have had independent interactions with Matthew Berdyck are all lying, then that is the biggest fucking conspiracy that this world has ever known. He has twisted logic.
I'm not an expert on this, but I feel like Matt probably has something wrong with him mentally. Maybe if he went to some therapy and talked to more people, it wouldn't be so bad.
I think he needs to be forced into treatment. I wish he'd get treatment.
He clearly needs psychiatric help.
Do you think he'll ever get it?
No, because he's a narcissist and there's nothing wrong with him. It's everybody else. I mean, my ex-wife's the same way.
Is it narcissism? Is it malignant narcissism? Those are good questions. I'm not a psychologist.
The thing that bothers me is when people call him schizo, because I have a schizoaffective personality disorder, and I wouldn't consider him and me in the same realm of crazy. I get treatment for my personality disorder.
I don't think Matt wants treatment. I don't think he wants help.
The institutions that we used to have where Berdyck would be hospitalized at, we no longer have in this country.
If Berdyck does not get treatment, this will not end well.
And so it's me against the world. And the only way I can have a normal life is to win. Honestly, I have post-traumatic stress disorder from this. And if it continues, I'm gonna fucking snap. I am not faking my motherfucking emotional distress. And I am going to fucking snap.
If Berdyck actually snaps, it's gonna be all over the news that the FBI and law enforcement have been getting tips about this guy for years and they did nothing.
This morning, a newly resurfaced police report shows local police and the FBI were warned about Anthony Warner nearly a year and a half before he allegedly detonated his RV in downtown Nashville on Christmas morning.
A bombshell admission from the FBI. 6 weeks ago, they were warned that Nicholas Cruz might be planning a school shooting.
None of it is going to stop me from having a voice. I'm not gonna stop writing things.
I do not think that mental illness should be an exemption from consequences.
Cybercrimes generally are not taken seriously by law enforcement. They're misdemeanors, and when it's a cybercrime misdemeanor, they generally don't care that much about it.
As long as he is out there and is making people's lives a living hell, then I am free to mock him for that. If people think I'm an asshole for that, I accept that. I mean, I can't arrest him, I can't charge him with anything, I can't put him in jail, but I can goddamn sure as shit make fun of him.
Like they were trying to destroy me on some level, but all they did was make me famous and just make my life significantly more complex.
At this time, I believe Matthew Berdyck has a cluster of personality disorders. Matthew Berdyck clearly seems to know what he's doing is wrong, and he gets pleasure from hurting people.
I don't think Matthew Berdyck is mentally ill. I think he's just a dick.
When someone is threatening you or threatening your employment and law enforcement isn't doing anything about it, sometimes they're going to fight back. Because what other choice do they have?
Fuck Matthew Berdyck.
Tip your servers, let's get this started. I've got a new song that I've been working on.
We decided to do the concert because I wanted something positive to come out of all of the bullshit that he was spreading all over town. We decided to raise some money for MBVR, which stands for Matthew Berdyck Victim Resources.
We were all pretty well on board right away.
And they said, hey, would you want to do a benefit for MBVR? I was like, yes. Yeah, I would. You know, it sounds like fun, you know?
I felt like it was necessary to do the show because he obviously has harassed a lot of people in our town, and I felt like we were kind of sticking up for everybody.
You know, silver lining on Matthew Berdyck creating victims. We got to have a really good show out of it.
We announced the concert, and he would write posts saying that he was going to report us to the state auditor for illegal fundraising.
This Garner Quillian guy will just, who knows, maybe someone will hit him in the head with a brick or something just for being a piece of shit.
But he started sending death threats that he was going to shoot me in the head.
Just so there's no confusion, I had my shirt specially made. I am not Garner. So anybody looking for Garner that may be packing, that's a lie. I am not Garner, my shirt says so.
And then when I saw this benefit concert was going to happen, and I saw that he was still harassing like Brian Myers and he was harassing this band, and I was like, man, why is he still around? What is his end goal? And I still don't know.
This concert was standing up to a bully. And it happens to have been the same bully I've been experiencing online. So I packed up all my gear and drove 11 hours, even though he threatened to show up with an assault rifle.
He started harassing the bartender that works at the venue that the benefit show is at. There for a while, he was threatening to show up and spray bullets on the band.
He posted 2 Facebook Live videos where he contradicted himself. In one, he claimed that he was really bothered and hurt by the concert, and in the other one, he claimed it didn't bother him at all.
I mean, these guys are doing so much shit to me right now. And now they're going to have a benefit concert. So I lose my home, I lose my business, I lose everything that I worked for up until that moment in my life. I lose my name and reputation, and now they're going to hold a benefit concert for quote-unquote my victims. You know, as far as their benefit concert, you know, I saw on the thing is like 7 people go, and it's $5 admission. There's 3 bands, and a portion of Ramey Memo's proceeds will go to the victims. And so right now they're at $35 in income, and they got to divide that between 3 people.
Well, I actually wanted to go to the concert last night because I wanted to see if Matt would show up. I wanted to meet him in person and see whether he had as big a balls as he says he does or if he's just a pussy. And I wanted to meet him in person to find out for sure. And I was really disappointed he didn't at least show his face.
I was worried a little bit last night for the show. I thought maybe he would do something because I think he's one of those people that wants to be famous no matter what. Where does that lead? That leads to a shooting, or that leads to who knows what.
Initially, I wasn't quite sure if Berdyck was going to show up or not. There was a little part of me that was just like, is this going to be our last day on Earth? Or is he going to show up with an assault rifle and actually blow us away a la Dimebag Darrell?
I was nervous before, during, and after when we were leaving.
I was glad to see that we had police presence there. I didn't know initially that the FBI was there. I didn't find out about that until later. And I was glad to hear about that.
He feels empowered. He got the police and even the goddamn FBI to show up at the concert.
So they took his email threats and online post threats serious enough to be there, but not serious enough to press charges, because, you know, it's the internet.
My girlfriend didn't even want me going to the show last night. She was super paranoid about it. And I was like, well, you know, I helped put the show on. If I don't show up, what's that going to look like? So I went to the show and nothing happened. It was a great show. And Matthew Berdyck didn't stop anything from happening, like he threatened he would.
He says we committed a hate crime against him, which everything's a hate crime to him, I bet. So
he's turned me into the Missouri Attorney General for committing a hate crime. I never heard anything back from the Missouri Attorney General's office. I'm still waiting for that phone call.
Sometimes Berdyck will do or say something that's so ridiculous that you can't help but laugh at it. But then you start to realize this guy could be severely mentally ill, and then you feel guilty for having laughed at it.
They want to have a benefit concert, have your benefit concert, man. Don't be shocked when it ends up a piece of evidence in a future court case.
For fucking what? For what? What could he possibly sue us for?
Don't be shocked when citizens come forward with whistleblower protection and are able to confirm what they witnessed you doing.
We're a dumbass rock band from St. Joseph, Missouri, and no one knows who we are. Why the hell would someone need whistleblower protection to talk about a show we played in a bar?
Berdyck does not have the spine to walk into a court of law, because I think he knows if he does, the likelihood that he's going to go to jail is pretty strong.
They wait until I'm vulnerable and then attack me. And so I'm talking with some television producers and journalists and various people about all of this, and we're working to make sure that the other side of the story is told.
So here we are a year and a half later, and Mr. Berdyck sends an email, and he made the statement in this that this is to officially notify you that I'm taking you all into federal court for damaging me as a journalist, for violating my civil rights as a U.S. citizen, and I'm giving you the opportunity to settle before I take you to court. And at this point, I'm like, fuck it. I'll send him a settlement agreement. So, I offered him a 6-pack of Molson Ice, a Bryan Adams cassette, and I think Sweatin' to the Oldies Volume 2 on VHS. Shamefully, I do have all of these in my possession and would have definitely sent those as part of the settlement agreement, but, he didn't take it.
I am going to get my revenge on this town, on these elected officials, on the media, on the police. I am absolutely going to make sure they pay and are held accountable for what they did to me. And they're going to bring all of this scandal into St. Joseph, Missouri. I'm going to bring it right back times 10,000 with no mercy whatsoever. No mercy. It's not going to stop until they're gone. I am going to be proud to be the one who lights that city on fire with controversy over and over and over and over and over again. And so no one can blame me. I'm just the messenger.
This Matt guy who just kind of walked in one day started smearing crap all over the place, and it's not his place to do that.
I'm good at what I do, and then everything else I would probably be terrible. And I almost don't know if I ever want to change what it is that I do.
I wanted him to be what he said he was. I wanted him to want a different kind of style of journalism in our town. I really wanted that because it sounded awesome. And then it just turned into this nightmare that followed me around. I still get people who ask me about him.
I watched these flame wars on Facebook in St. Joseph as they were happening. He just constantly needs to be a victim if he can't be the hero.
I think St. Joe might have been the biggest rebuttal he ever had. I hope that he gets help.
At the very least, I hope no one gives him any more money.
So I'm still waiting for the lawsuit that Matt said he was going to bring against him. He said he was going to have the FBI arrest me for hate crimes. I'm still waiting for that to happen.
My take on this is that I am who I say I am. I have done these causes. I have been an activist. I have been a filmmaker.
If Matthew Berdyck dedicated the time that he spends fighting online to activism, journalism, filmmaking, or even stake dealing, the world would actually be a better place. All anybody wants is for him to stop harassing people online.
His story is interesting in the same way that America has a fascination with serial killers.
I wish to God Berdyck was not as fascinating as he is. It's compelling to see somebody so unbelievably unsympathetic, yet is deserving of some degree of empathy. The problem is with Berdyck, if you give him an ounce of empathy, he's gonna cash it in like a casino chip.
I hope he doesn't hurt himself or anyone else. But I think the potential is for Matthew Berdyck to be violent is definitely there.
I tried to help a woman who was being beat up by a man. That's how this all started, with me trying to do a good deed.
I do think he's a sadist. I think he enjoys hurting other people. And I don't think that he should be allowed to continue to do that.
You can't go around the country doing this crap.
Everything he's ever said about St. Joseph, never once has he taken responsibility for a single thing he did. Everything is somebody else's fault.
I think he just came to a city that wasn't gonna take a shit.
All it does is make me famous. So...
It has always been against our policies to use any of our tools in a way that breaks the law. And we have many controls already in place to prevent this. But we can do more.
I think social media outlets have the responsibility to curb this kind of behavior. They should be banning his accounts.
How is he getting away with saying all of these things on Facebook, social media, all these other things?
How do people that are victims to something like that get any sense of justice in any type of court, whether it's civil or criminal? You don't. The damage has already been done.
Threatening to shoot him in the head. How is he getting away with that stuff?
I don't know. I don't know how he gets away with all this stuff. I do not know how this guy's not in prison.
I would love to see him in jail. But at the same time, I don't want him in our jail. Because if we put him in our jail, if he gets out in 6 months, he might stay.
I hope everybody out there is having, a great time watching all these idiots, do everything they can to try to take me down and completely fail.
I don't understand how he can evade the law so effectively. Matt never filed any lawsuits in St. Joseph. He didn't sue IHOP, he didn't sue our band, he didn't sue the venue, he didn't sue the news press, he didn't sue the city, he didn't sue Brian, he didn't sue anyone.
So many things out there that just can't, they're not going to work in court. They work on the internet. You can use the internet, and the way they use it, you can manipulate people, and you can lie, and you can lure in people into your thing, but that's not a thing you can do in a court.
Do you think Berdyck threatens with these lawsuits hoping that people back down and then he feels power?
Yes.
That's exactly what I think too.
He likes to start trouble and then run away, when there's going to be consequences. He's a coward.
I have been dealing with this for over 10 years and I'm tired. I tried retaliation, I tried being mean, didn't help. I tried ignoring him, didn't work. I filled out police reports, I got criminal charges filed against him, I filed for a Civil Stalking Protection Order, I've even gone to the FBI. No one will do anything about him. My only defense against all this defamation and harassment is this documentary. Would you like to know where I got the idea from?
Also going to try to make a film out of this too. I'm struggling with how to put it together right now, how to make it something that's entertaining but also cohesive at the same time. It's a really convoluted situation.
How I feel about Peter John Ross making this documentary, it's just part of being Matthew Berdyck. I don't really have any control over it. I know I've shown the trailer to a lot of people, other filmmakers, actors, people in Hollywood, and ultimately what I've seen is that people see a movie being made about me and they're congratulating me on my success, which is strange. Downtown Los Angeles filming, guy walks up to me and takes a selfie with me for the first time ever. It was crazy. Like, it's almost as if I'm becoming exactly what it is I always wanted to be.
I'm back.
Hi, Mr. Berdyck. I'm a processor. I've got some court papers for you.
He was trying to get $500,000 fucking dollars to sue Aaron Brockovich for defamation. What the fuck has Aaron Brockovich ever said about Matt Berdyck publicly? Nothing.
are people he's harassed for a decade.
These MBVR people. Diane Diamond, the journalist who exposed the Michael Jackson allegations.
To my mind, there's something really wrong with this guy. He spends all of his time contacting total strangers, wanting to be recognized for his greatness when he really has no greatness.
Ernest Halkin, who is a former active investigator for the DA's office.
He doesn't deal in reality. I think he is absolutely aware of the harm he causes.
Jane Hitchcock, who claims to be an anti-cyberbullying activist. And what they did was they formed this MBVR. Peter John Ross is a murderer. He's a murderer. It all fits together in this congealing puzzle.
The Front Royal Warren County EDA lawsuit.
It was like when the Berdyck stuff came out. I have a whole 3-ring binder on all that.
And then you have me saying, please, let's get to the bottom of this.
Then eventually it led to him saying, I'm going to kill you and your daughter. I'm sitting there trying to figure out, I'm trying to figure out how he knows I got kids.
All hell is breaking loose in Des Moines. The police officer appears like he's trying to frame me for a crime.
I don't give a fuck if anybody thinks I'm crazy. This is my life.
What can I help you for?
Matthew Berdyck?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, you got a small warrant, okay? We got to take care of it. Okay?
I've never heard another story like it.
How far behind our society is legislatively for how far we've all shifted into this virtual space with social media and our phones and the internet. You have the Internet Decency Act in the United States in Section 230, which makes companies like Facebook, Twitter, and Google, they have no legal liability for what a user does on their platform. And there are some bad actors that take real advantage of that. And there's so much more they could do, and these companies are so profitable, but they've started to do even less. They're now they removed the human element entirely and are going way more into artificial intelligence for looking at these complaints. People like these internet trolls can really get in there and do a lot of damage, and there's not even a lot of laws to catch up to what they're doing. I simply do not have the ego to believe that I'm going to change the laws or change how social media companies operate. If I have any goal with this film, it's pretty basic. It's just learn to not engage with internet trolls, to simply ignore the social media monsters and move on. I do have a bias in this film. 10 years ago, when I started interacting with this guy, I thought I was just dealing with an internet troll, and I reacted very poorly. I hit below the belt. I said things that were very rude and wrong and hurtful, and for that I apologize. I'm apologizing to Matthew Berdyck that I said and did those things. I was wrong to have done that. I mean, I was responding to someone who sent me multiple emails in a row calling me a fat fuck. But at the same time, that doesn't make my reaction right. I should have never responded at all. I should have just had zero reply. And that's one of my biggest regrets, is replying and continuing on with this. And now this guy's obsessed with me 10 years later. My hope is that this movie does not inspire anybody to attack or harass or make fun of Matthew Berdyck. That is not my intent. That is not my goal in any way, shape, or form. It's possible he's genuinely mentally ill, and regardless of whether he's mentally ill or not, I just feel sorry for him. I think that he's somebody that's hurting and he needs help. And the movie's not in any way supposed to be making fun of him. It's hard to not find humor in some aspects of his behavior because it gets so ludicrous. But in the end, I would hope that the kind of like combination of the whole picture is, here's somebody that needs help. When Matthew Berdyck contacts somebody's boss trying to get them fired after they have a fight on social media, if they can point to this film and go to their boss and say, look, just be careful, this is what we're dealing with, and if this kind of like just eradicates his power to cause that stress, I think it was completely worthwhile. I think the film will have been worth it. And from what I understand, that's already happened about a dozen times so far. So this experience has just been fantastic, knowing that I've helped at least a couple people's lives. While Social Media Monster was doing some film festival screenings, the subject of the film had gone on Twitter Live and had submitted some questions.
We received these questions from Twitter.
My question for the director is, when you learned that I was actually talking about Perry Township and that I was actually in Perry Township that day, I had showed photos of a ring that I purchased in Perry Township. I posted photos of a receipt from a Buffalo Wild Wings in Perry Township. It said Perry Township. I showed credit card records from Perry Township. I posted all of this. You were aware of all of this. Considering I was talking about Perry Township the entire time, and that I didn't send these emails, and even in those emails it doesn't say Perry Nuclear Power Plant, why is North Perry Village in your film?
Okay, I have never seen any of these postings he's referring to. I never saw receipts. I never saw a ring. I never saw anything that just said Perry, Ohio. The reason North Perry is in the film is because, well, the emails that I personally received referred to Perry, North Perry. The FBI interviewed me about threats to the North Perry nuclear power plant. So the film states he denies that he sent those emails, but that's up to the audience to decide, did he or did he not send them or not.
Question number 2 for the Social Media Monster Q&A. Why, as things occur that change the narrative of your film and also disagree with the opinion that you state throughout the film and that you're trying to reinforce throughout the film, why don't you ever vet any of those things, and why don't you ever edit the film to let the audience know that some of these things have been discredited? So do you feel that your film should be considered credible based on the fact that you don't make any effort to edit it or correct it when new information is presented to you? Why do you selectively pick and choose what you decide should be vetted, is my question.
We have re-edited this film almost continuously over the past year as new information comes to light, when new evidence shows up, new audio recordings, new screenshots, whatever. We've been re-editing this film perpetually. We're on, I think, on revision 17 or 18 at this point, based on new information. So we do re-edit the film all the time when new information shows up. As for the film being discredited, I have not received anything that's discredited the film. Matthew just saying that it's discredited, or Matthew saying other evidence exists, nothing's been presented. We've seen nothing. We have requested multiple times, hey, if you've got screenshots or video or anything, receipts, like he says, we'd be happy to incorporate and change the movie. But every time we have asked, he's either said no or says, I'm saving it for my own documentary. And so he never provides it, but likes to say that we're not changing the film when we do change the film. I'm the director of the film. I get to decide what is or isn't in the film, and that's just how movies are made.
This is my third question for the Social Media Monster Q&A. Now, Mr. Ross will not let me see the film, and so the question that I had, even for Dr. Phil's show or everybody, is, what is my scam? You've accused me of being a con man, a fraud, and a scammer for many years, but no one's ever been able to figure out what that scam is and what it is I was trying to accomplish, because all I did was end up, having a net worth of roughly $2.6 million at one point.
Okay, I have not been privy to any evidence that his net worth was anything near $2.6 million. I have never seen bank account statements or anything that would add up to a dollar amount that high. Some might consider that fraudulent. Nothing in the film is made up from thin air. Nothing. From his own social media postings, he said he was collecting Social Security disability throughout that entire time through sometime in early 2019. Some might say it's fraud to have a value of 2.6 million and still collect disability, because then it's most likely he's not reporting that income, because you can't make that kind of money and still collect on disability. The address he uses on his website for his business, Matthew Berdyck LLC, is listed as San Francisco on Fillmore Street, but there's no evidence he's ever ran a business from there, and he's never had a residence there. So that's fraudulent. In the documentary itself, Matthew had his business partner, Alex, give Austin $500, but then wanted the refund back to himself. In the conversation I personally had with Alex, he was not aware of that. So that's pretty fraudulent. I mean, I could keep going, but I think I made my point.
Peter John Ross basically found me on the internet in 2012 while I was homeless, and I was making my later released 2013 film, Blame Reagan.
During this nearly 17 minutes video, Matthew never asked a question except what was written in the tweet.
I am not participating in any SEO campaigns to disparage Matthew Berdyck. So I'm not participating in those things. There's no evidence of something I'm not actually doing. I'm sorry, I just do not trust that Matthew Berdyck is suffering intense emotional distress, because one day he'll say it's not bothering him at all. The next day he'll say he's deeply bothered by it. And I don't trust anything that he says without some kind of third-party verification, some other additional evidence to support it. I just don't think. He's publicly stated many times that, this is all some homage to Hunter S. Thompson or an Andy Kaufman style prank, and that we're all too stupid to see it. So I just don't know what to think. I still have no idea what to believe in that regard.
Question number 5, and to me, this is the single most important question that can possibly be asked of Peter John Ross. The question for Peter John Ross is, why am I, Matthew Berdyck, the only person trying to find a journalist to vet this film? Why don't you find a journalist to vet this? Now, do they have the ability to find a journalist that's unbiased? Don't you think somebody should hold both of us accountable and ask us to prove our stories? I'm willing to do that. Peter John Ross is not. And I want to know directly from Peter John Ross, why are you afraid to contact an unbiased third-party journalist, and why am I not? Just to try to hide the fact that we're covering up the destruction of an activist who uncovered this extraordinarily massive scandal.
We have sent the documentary to multiple journalists all over the country, usually in relation to the film festival screenings. One of the co-producers is a journalist that's had no dealings whatsoever with Matthew Berdyck, and he's kept us on the straight and narrow. He's requested changes in the edit that we've made because he felt it was too biased. So we have done exactly that. But as for why the media may or may not be writing about it, usually it relates to the film's not publicly available to the world yet, so there's no real reason to write about a film that no one can see unless you're at a film festival in that city at that time. I am not remotely afraid of the film being vetted, researched by journalists. We did intense amounts of research, verification, and everything, and I'm pretty confident we'll stand up to any scrutiny.
Originally, there was a different question number 3.
This film is a piece of shit. It's been running through the festivals since last March, it has not made it into any major festival, not even as a selection. The only festivals that it's reached are these pseudo-festivals all over the world, like the Iraqi Explosion Festival or any number of other completely disreputable festivals that have virtually no audience. Considering all of that, why don't you just release the film? Why keep trying to adorn it with worthless laurels and showing it at theaters where 6 people show up or 40 people or whatever? You're directly damaging the film by showing it at these places to 10, 20, 30, 40 people. Why not just release the film? Are you a coward? Do you know the film is filled with lies and you can't stomach, big stomach, the thought of the world attacking you for being just as big of a piece of shit as your film is? What is it? Why haven't you released this film? Nobody cares about your career. Nobody's watching anything you do. Literally nobody gives a fuck about you or anything you show up, you do these Q&As, and I mean, you even get people that you know to ask questions because nobody even gives a fuck enough to ask questions. And so all of this is just sort of I don't know why you're doing this. There's not a lot of reason to do any of this. So why don't you just release the film?
The main reason we don't release the film is we're still in the middle of the film festival circuit, which means if it's publicly available, they won't take it. It's against the rules of virtually every film festival. If it's available online for free, they won't play it at a film festival. That's pretty much it. Any chance to sit in a dark room with a bunch of strangers and watch a movie you made is just a gift. So for me personally, I don't care if there's 3 or 4 people or 400. So far, as of right now, February 2022, we have been an official selection at 25 film festivals so far. Not everybody's going to like your movie, and that's okay. Every single person's opinion is valid. Even Matthew's opinion about the film is valid. I just want to say thank you for taking the time to even watch the movie.